Hello guys, welcome to another virtual biology lesson, and today we're going to talk about further senses. We have already talked about vision, we have already talked about hearing, and those two senses allow us to perceive and sense the stimuli from further away because you can see something that is far away from you and you can hear a distant sound. On the other hand, on the contrary, smell, taste, and touch are senses that work for perceiving the world from closer perspective. So you have to be really close to something in order to smell it, to taste it, or to touch it. The first two senses, which are taste and smell, are responsible for receiving chemical signals. They have evolved to let us quickly check whether the food that we are going to eat is fresh or not. Touch is more complex because it lets us know not only about the fact that we are touching something, but also gives us information about its shape and structure. And guys, let's start with smell. The receptors of smelling sense are olfactory cells. Komórki węchowe. And they are present in the nasal cavity, which is this cavity in here. Here you have marked the olfactory epithelium, which is basically the type of epithelium rich in olfactory cells. So this whole area in our nasal cavity is full of our olfactory cells. Particles of chemical compounds are carried by air and enter nasal cavity whenever we take a breath. Once they touch the olfactory cells, they start to translate the mechanical sensation of particles into nervous impulses sent into the brain. So, a particle of a certain smell, for instance, flowers, tiny molecules, they touch the cilia that belong to the olfactory cells, and then the signal is translated into a nervous impulse and then transmitted to the brain. The brain basically recognizes the smell by comparing it with the things that the brain has already learned. So if you have smelled something already, then you will recognize it. So if you have smelled lily in your life, then whenever tiny particles of lily pollen touch your olfactory cells again, then the brain will let you know, yes, this is lily. If you have smelled some food, the same thing will happen. Basically, it means that tiny molecules, single molecules of something that we are smelling are entering our nasal cavity and then touching olfactory cells. Please remember about this when you enter, for instance, public toilet and the smell is not that appealing. It basically means that tiny particles of what smells are entering your nasal cavity. But don't worry, those are just single molecules. They aren't capable, in most of the cases, they aren't capable of carrying any pathogens. But yet still, it's kind of gross. This sense of smell is important when judging whether the food we are about to eat is fresh or not. In the past, it was very important because you didn't have any tests for poisons, any tests for there weren't any means of safe processing of food, so you had to eat whatever you had. Now, the food that we are eating is in general safer because of all the processes that we use to preserve it. So, when we are sick and we have a runny nose, amounts of mucus are blocking access over to olfactory cells. So the mucus start to build up in here, and basically block the entrance of air to the lungs, but also it's blocking, preventing the air from uh, olfactory cells. What happens then? The food has no flavor, which is kind of weird because it's your nose, not your tongue. But it turns out that the flavor is the mix of both taste and aroma. So without aroma, you basically cannot taste the food. If you have eaten, let's say, chocolate or an orange, you remember its flavor, which is the mix of what both nose and mouth receive. But chocolates and oranges tastes are a certain balance of the following five tastes that our tongues are able to recognize. And guys, the five tastes are as following: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and savory, which is sometimes called umami. Sugar will be undoubtedly sweet. Will be undoubtedly salty. Lemon is sour. Quinine in tonic water is bitter. And so is cocoa. For instance, pure cocoa is really bitter. If it comes to umami, it's referred to as meaty taste. It can also be tasted in soy sauce, cheese, or mushroom broth. So basically, this is the taste that adds much more flavor to the other ones. The chemical additive used in food industry to activate this taste is called MSG, monosodium glutamate. Po polsku glutaminian sodu. It's the taste enhancer. In large quantities, it can cause digestion disorders and stomach irritations. How is it possible that we actually taste those five tastes? Take a look here. Papillae and papillae and papillae. Brodawki. Those are the places on human tongue that contain things that are called taste buds. Kubki smakowe. And basically, taste buds contain taste cells. There are five types of taste cells, and each of them recognizes only one of the tastes. In order for them to work, the food has to contain water. When it's mixed with water coming from the food itself or saliva, it's able to reach its taste buds. So some parts of the papillae, they contain taste buds. There is a really good illustration of this on page 209 in the book, which basically shows the papillae and what it looks inside. The taste buds are really tiny, tiny cells that contain those taste cells. And guys, the last thing is the touch. And basically, organs of touch sense are the receptors in our skin. Skin is responsible for sensing not only the act of touching something, but also temperature, pain, and pressure. All of them combined allow us to tell about properties of items around us. So basically, what is its structure, hardness, thermal properties, and so on. Touch has a protective meaning for us, and here I'm referring to the reflex arch mechanism. So whenever you just touch something that is hot, the signal goes directly to your uh, spinal cord, and without even going to the brain at this point, it activates your effector muscle. The most sensitive places on our skin are fingertips, lips, and tip of the nose, which is kind of surprising, but the tip of the nose part, I mean, but it used to have, probably it used to have some more meaning for our ancestors. The list of sensory cells are present on our backs, and you can quite easily check it. There is this tiny experiment that you can do. So you basically take two toothpicks, just like that, and you uh, simultaneously stick into somebody's back. So let's say it's the back of a person. And guys, when you do it like this, close to each other, the person will probably tell that there is only one toothpick touching them. You have to touch simultaneously from further and further distances, so the person at some point will tell, yes, those are two separate toothpicks touching me at once. This happens because there aren't many receptor cells on the back, so the signal is not that precise. Uh, Guys, this is it for now for today. So thanks for your attention, and please carefully read the instructions that are attached to the post.